balance point will tell you where to place your upper hand, and it's generally at the fulcrum, at your upper hand, and then it's about shoulders width. The travel of the rod, once you make your initial cast or you sweep it through, what you do is you lift it up. The travel of the rod is actually very...
Why do I have to lift it?
To clear some of the line off of the water, to get it unstuck.
Yeah, like these little cameras do super.
So I have to, so I can't just
lift it up in a
start right
shotgun
down
manner.
there, start the line right down there and rip it off the water?
No. What will happen is you won't be able to place an anchor.
Oh, okay. Is that something that, an anchor, is that something that's on a boat?
If you have a canoe, yes, a lot more comfortable that way. There's really three ways to apply power to the rod. The first way is by keeping your stationary or your lower hand stationary and applying power with your upper hand. You notice it's very fatiguing. Then there's a second way, which is a fulcrum move. What does that really mean? A fulcrum move is your lower hand pushing one way and your upper hand pushing the opposite way. Visualize a spike driven in the middle of the rod tip, and this is a fulcrum move. They do have a place in spey casting, generally a longer line application. It applies more power to the cast, but the downside to that is you do not get tip speed. You don't get tip speed, especially with shorter headed lines. You do not get distance. Distance is nothing more than line speed. How do you apply power that way? Simply by keeping the upper hand stationary and applying power with the lower hand. As you can see, the top of the rod tip really moves with very little input from the lower hand. Does that work?
What types of spey casting are there? There has to be more than one type.
Spey casting is just a general term, in my opinion.
In the general term, though, isn't there like a Scandinavian type, a Skagit type?
There are basically different types of heads which classify it as a type of cast, whether it be a Scandinavian head, whether it be a Skagit head, whether it be a mid-spey, a long line, or...
Do you have to change your cast for each one of these different...
Yes, you do. It's the way you apply power to the cast. And simply by applying power, we just went through a portion of that. And the other part to that, applying the power, also includes your stance. What is your stance? You have an open stance and a closed stance. An open stance is nothing more than your left foot forward if you're a right-handed person, which allows you to kind of bring the rod. You get a good rod swing. One of the downsides to that is you tend to over-rotate the rod tip. As you can see, the rod tip is actually pointing a little further in back of me. What that generally entails, or the problem that it occurs, is that you over-rotate the rod, and especially with bigger flies, they don't travel up as high. You may hit the back of your head. A closed stance, what that really entails is your dominant hand with your dominant foot forward. Now, God doesn't allow you to bring it back. So what you're doing is you're really obeying the 180-degree principle. You really have three principles. One is a anchor. What's an anchor? An anchor is nothing more than a line touching the ground or touching the water. You have two types of an